Good morning and happy Tuesday. Welcome to Smart Impressions. I'm Rachel Muleman, your host of Smart Impressions, and today's show is all about navigating influencer marketing with no other than Zahirah Marty, who's Managing Director of Destination Marketing. This is an influencer marketing brand and agency all about content and figuring out how to do it the right way with these influencers. So Zahirah, thanks so much for coming.
Thanks for having me, Rachel.
It's so nice to see you again. I know we go back way back in time.
Yeah, very, very early days.
And I'm going to just say, Zahirah is here today because she is an expert. She's hit so many different topics around this space. When it talks about human connections, it's about PR marketing. You really have a plethora of knowledge and expertise, which I want you to bring to the table. So grab your cup of coffee because we're going to have a great show for you today. Zahirah, let's just jump right in, shall we?
Yeah, let's do it.
So your world is influencer marketing. I know you're a host on a great travel show right now, and being the front face of a brand is so important for that connectivity, right? And so with that, in today's marketing landscape, let's talk about how influencer marketing has become prevalent for businesses. It's not an option anymore. It's kind of like a mandate that they have to consider, right?
Well, absolutely, Rachel. I think back when I had an agency several years ago, when the concept of influencer marketing first came up, it was something that you could decide whether you wanted to go down that route or not. Today, that whole landscape is completely different, and you almost have to, in some capacity, whether the influencer comes from internal capacity, so whether it's a member of the team or member of management, that you build a profile to be an influencer, or it's external forces that come in and have opinions on your product and influence their audiences. Influencer marketing has become a critical part of any marketing mix in different ways and shapes and forms.
Well, it's interesting because I think like today's Gen X population, they all want to be influencers. It's not even about getting a job anymore. I mean, influencer is a job. There's no doubt. It's very time consuming, but like there's so many, I feel like there's a plethora of options, So how do you if you're a company, how do you make the right decision of which direction to go? What are you looking for? And what should they consider?
Well, I think like any component of a marketing mix, you've always got to go back to what is your objective and what is your marketing strategy. A lot of the time, influencer marketing to a marketing team, particularly a more traditional marketing team, tends to be something that is a panic reflex, which it was a couple of years ago. Well, everyone else is doing it. We need to be doing it, without much thought as to how, why, what do we want to get out of it. With influencer marketing, I think the approach always has to be come back to strategy. I'm an old school girl, so I always begin with strategy. I always begin with DNA. What is the purpose of what we're trying to achieve with this campaign? And then you plug in the channels that you need to execute that campaign, whether it is PR, whether it is social media, whether it is influencer. Influencer marketing doesn't replace other marketing channels. It never has and it never will. But what it does do is it gives you an alternative method to reach audiences that you may or may not be able to reach via your other channels. That said, audiences, as a very loose category of people, have matured massively over the years. Since the first person went on and said, this is awesome, and everyone said, yes, it's awesome because she said so, we now get ourselves to a point where there's so much information available to audiences that they themselves are so advanced in how they receive, process, and adopt information that you give to them, that you have to be really careful about how you package your information, who you choose to carry that information to audiences, and ultimately who that audience actually is. Because a lot of the time, there's a displacement or misplacement of funds and campaign and effort with selection of influencers, execution of campaigns, and who they're actually trying to target versus who they're actually reaching.
It's crucial to pick the right people. There's no doubt. Just like picking the right staff members, it's crucial because they represent your brand.
Yeah, it's part of your media mix. Like you wouldn't go and place an advert for a certain type of audience on an incorrect medium of a different language for a different region. And very similarly, when you pick an influencer, influencers and businesses have to realize they're a marketing mix component. They have a certain function, they have a certain reach, they have certain statistics. So like you would sit and analyze a placement of media or a spend for an ad or any sort of spend and exchange, an influencer, despite being a human being, has a function, and there's a two-way exchange of data, funds, campaign effort, and outcomes that has to be achieved by both parties. And that's what I spend a lot of time trying to explain to influencers, is you have to see yourself as a micro business, and that comes with responsibilities and it comes with benefits, but you have to understand that there's both components.
I like that. I like that because there's no doubt. I mean, there's deliverables, right? We're talking business. The people that are listening are business professionals, and when considering, if you are considering getting involved with an influencer to represent your brand, I know sometimes business owners may not want to be that forefront face of the business. Maybe they don't want the salespeople. Sometimes I keep on saying you got to post, you got to elevate your value online, but a lot of people are uncomfortable with this. It's like tooting your own horn. So then the other option, which is a great option, is in the influencer route, right? Go to somebody that's comfortable.
I agree and I disagree, because for me, whenever I speak to businesses or business partners, my advice always is if you can draw from within, that's first prize. Because with an influencer, there will ultimately be other brands that they work on, unless there's some kind of exclusivity agreement. And also understand that authenticity, which whenever I speak or whenever I have staff, they kind of go, authenticity and consistency are Zah's two favorite words, because they really are. You have to be consistent and you have to be authentic. So when you're choosing an influencer, yes, what you said earlier, 100%, an influencer is a micro business. So you do need to have deliverables. You do need to have a contract. You do need to have deadlines. And the influencer has to comply with that. There seems to be this sort of awkwardness around pressure from a business to an influencer in terms of pushing them to deliver, and vice versa, an influencer feeling like they can kind of do things as and when they want to do it. Why am I not getting paid? I don't know how much to ask for. It's a double-edged sword, but what needs to be understood by both parties is it is a business relationship. An influencer is a micro business, the brand is a business, and there is an exchange. There needs to be a contract, there needs to be set deliverables, and there needs to be invoicing and simple things like that from the influencer's perspective. When choosing influencers, it is really, really important to not necessarily follow the trend of your market, in the sense that this person seems big, they seem to have good numbers, they seem to get good content or good comments, but rather to really, like you would analyze any other marketing component, really break down what you're wanting to achieve by engaging with this particular influencer, and then asking yourself if they have the audience to meet that. Does their audience, through your analysis, have the capacity to spend what you need them to spend? Some campaigns might be purely brand awareness, where you're just wanting to let the world know that you exist and these are your value propositions to the market, which is fine. But even in that case, you want the audience that you are reaching to be in some capacity, have the ability to convert to a customer or have a connection to someone that converts to a customer to impact your bottom line. A lot of the time, and particularly in our market, unfortunately, you see brands working with influencers that don't necessarily fit, that don't necessarily have the audience that fits that brand profile, but also just follows an influencer or works with an influencer that seems to be cool and trendy at the time and nice to have on your portfolio. A common example I give is, a car brand. You can't necessarily, or you can, it's, in my opinion, not a good choice. You don't want an influencer that's hopping to your competitors and every other week is at a different car brand. You can't possibly find every car brand to be simply amazing and the best choice for your family vehicle. That's not possible. And audiences see through that as well. You'll often now hear, or if you join forums or you sit in sort of customer relationship review groups, you'll sit around and have people go, oh, well, yeah, she's great and I like her content, but she says everything's amazing. Or yes, they say this about this company and that about that company, but they're obviously getting paid. Now that, for me, negates all your efforts as a brand and your expenditure that you are spending on this influencer to achieve the goal you're trying to achieve. And it's not always the popular opinion, but my opinion is spend more time doing research on the people that you're wanting to work with. find out if their values align with your values as a brand. And that's something a lot of brands don't do. And I'm not saying political views or extreme opinions, or really look at, and even if it's an Instagram account, put an executive on looking at, does this person align with the brand values that you have? And that's very simple question alone can answer whether they're a fit for your brand or not. And that's something not enough people do.
Yeah, I love that. I had a couple different thoughts. The first thought I had is like, people watch TV and get commercials, but you never hear people say, oh, that commercial was selling me something and they paid millions of dollars for that advertisement, right? But when it comes to humans, like, to be authentic, I mean, that's kind of like the criteria. You know, you got to be human, or else you're going to be, you know, then you got the whole dynamic of AI that's going to play a part in this influencer world, which is coming. I'm sure it's coming.
Oh, have you read anything? Yeah, it's here already. But the difference is emotion. And that's why you use an influencer. Part of it is, yes, they speak to an audience and the audience takes what they say as gospel. And you do still have groups of people that do that. But a big part of influencer marketing emerged at about the same time. I mean, I think it started long before, but in some markets, COVID was really the thing that set influencer marketing wild, because at that time, particularly, we were in search of emotional connection. So emotional branding sort of moved up the pile of methods that were proving to be successful for brands. So we connecting with humans. I know people connected with me at the start of my motherhood journey because they were like, oh, she either looks like me, or she has same interests as me, or her son's born at the same time as mine. You're connecting on human level. So when you're analyzing an influencer, not only do you look at stats and metrics, which are definitely important, you have to keep in mind how those can be manipulated. Obviously, we know that that happens. But you also need to look at the human element behind that account or behind that post and decide if that's something your brand supports or not.
I love that, because that's why I'm here. That's my mission on the planet, is to help drive these human connections. And it's so, I guess, like, enriching to hear that even the influencer space, people are they're striving for that human connection. And so being able to connect is looking at the shared values, right? And that's what is important, not only for humans to connect as viewers and followers, but also for brands to connect to choosing the right influencers. So it plays both parts, right?
Yeah.
Awesome. I really love that. That's good stuff, Zahirah. I love it. So listen,
this is something I'm so incredibly passionate about, because I feel like everyone scoots around, you know, and if you jump on your Instagram today, again, depending on your algorithm, mine particularly, there's a lot of these like, subscribe to my course or download this for $39 and I'll help you turn 100 followers into 10,000, or you can go from your salary to 6 digits. You can leave your job and travel the world. Yes, that's all possible. And yes, that's all great. But there's a lot of hard work that goes into it. And brands need to appreciate from an influencer's perspective how much effort goes into what they do when it comes to remuneration and that kind of thing. But they also need to understand that as a brand, they've got a lot of power, and who they choose to execute that power on their behalf is so, so, so important, because you're ultimately impacting people that have a set amount of income, and they're giving that to you based on a promise that a human has made to them. So you have a lot of responsibility when you select an influencer and when an influencer executes a campaign for you, and how you manage that value exchange for the end user.
I love that. That's your space. That's how you're helping people make sure that it's successful for both parties. And that's where you're playing in. So I invite anyone that is interested in making sure it's a invested success for both parties, reach out to Zahirah, because there's no one else in the market that I know that's doing this specifically and is incredible at some of the results. Now, coming from a PR space, because I know you moved from a PR space, and I think there is like that crossover from PR to the influencer, because there's no doubt influencer marketing does play a part in that PR, because you choose the wrong influencer or vice versa, you choose the right one, it could really impact your PR and skyrocket that, right?
Absolutely.
So can you give me a little understanding of what that transition looked like for you, or why you made that transition and how it differs from the PR space?
Yeah, I mean, I was the traditional boutique agency. You know, you send out a press release, you get a placement, you celebrate, client sees themselves in magazines, everyone's happy. You submit your report with your clippings at the end of the month. That's the space I started in. Over the years, that became less and less prevalent. You know, it's probably the unpopular thing to say, but a lot of traditional PR was never a conversation you'd have with a team like yours, with a sales team. It was never a conversation you'd have a sales manager. If you call up as a PR company and go, I've got a client that's got an amazing property in this part of the world, I'd love you to feature it. These are the reasons you should feature it. All great, here you go, images, links, whatever, perfectly packaged. And then you get a call from the sales guy going, oh, we see that you sent the editorial team this and this and this. Let's chat about how we can make this happen. That is not PR. There's a sales conversation and there's a PR conversation, and they tend to not be the same, or they shouldn't be the same. How the world merged is these two have now become one and the same in a lot of areas. And for me, that wasn't what I got into this space for. I'm passionate about telling stories and crafting stories and curating experiences and journeys for people through words and images and content. As I said to you when we initially spoke about this conversation, I'm not a salesperson. That's another team's job. So part of it was me just getting a little lackluster about where my industry was going. Then came influencer marketing, which was on the back of a social media wave. And as much as I love the space, and I love the strategy of the space, it became a little bit blurry as to sort of we're replacing budget that might have gone to advertising and to influencers, and what role of, you know, what's the return? I like to be able to sit in front of a client and say, I'm proposing this strategy to you, which is made up of XYZ components, and your return or expected return, whether it's numerical or in terms of coverage or in terms of reach, I can predict or guesstimate will be X, Y, and Z across those components. I felt I couldn't sit in front of clients and have those honest conversations anymore, because there's this big merge of influencer marketing and social media and PR, and a lot of it wasn't a space that I was passionate about anymore in the traditional sense. That, coupled with COVID, coupled with motherhood, just kind of made me go, maybe it's time for a change. And I know there's people in that space that are thriving and loving it. But for me, it was the sort of awakening I needed to move in a different direction that I'm so happy in now. Talking about destinations and influences and strategy and trainings and speaking at conferences about all these things put together. So to answer your question, that's how I kind of merged into the space that I'm in now, which I'm absolutely loving. Now being able to sit and work with people like you and go, your sales team needs to consider the marketing mix with how they package, how they sell, how they are passionate about it. And like you said at the very beginning, each one of your sales team components, whichever company you're training in, need to understand that they're also marketing vehicles. They are PR vehicles, because how they connect with people, how they talk about what they're selling and what they're doing is another medium for people to appreciate what they're selling and what they're doing. So everyone now, thanks to social media and traditional PR that has influenced that space, is an influencer within themselves. Whether they have 500 followers or 50,000 followers, you are reaching a group of people and you are influencing how they see whatever you're talking about. And I think that's critical as well, is that people have lost focus on what influencer marketing is. It's you exerting some degree of influence through either opinion or sales or marketing or visuals over a group of people. And that group of people doesn't need to be massive. It just needs to be a group of people. And how you influence, or the opinions that you create, is what influencer marketing is. It's influencing any group of people.
Amazing. Zahirah, you can tell this conversation is good. We run over by 4 minutes, so I'm going to wrap it up with the top 3 tips that you're going to give our audience to implement today after this call, all about what you should consider when choosing an influencer to work with for your brand. What do you got for our viewers?
I've got you 3 words. I'm going to say analyze, to make sure that you're aligning with the right people. Be authentic and consider your brand values when selecting people. And be consistent. Influencer marketing isn't about a drop in the ocean. It's about consistent messaging. It's about consistent association. And it's about consistency across the board when it comes to your marketing objectives and your marketing messages and the people you attach to that.
I think that's 3 tips that anyone could take away immediately. So again, get your influencers, whether they're in-house, whether they're out-house, they're out there. People connecting and influencing communities. Make sure they're the right communities. I love this, Zahirah. It's so nice to have your expertise on the show. Thank you, thank you, thank you for coming on and sharing today.
You're so welcome. Love being here.
It's great being here. Smart Impressions, Rachel Muehlman, and we're unlocking business relationships one connection at a time. So as you reach out for influencers, you know who to get in touch with. So here's the girl that can help you in that journey. We are sponsored by Dripify, the automation platform, so you don't have to do the work and connect with people and build a community. It does it for you. So get in touch if you're interested, and have a fabulous, fabulous, successful day. We'll see you next Tuesday. That's for me. Over and out. Have a great day. Thanks, everyone.